Hi Ravi, just joined into the meeting. Looks like Rajita is having some issues with the network, so fine, I'm just going to start the things. We have started with EC2. EC2 is nothing but a server, an instance which we can create in AWS. Do you remember what we have discussed yesterday? Hello?
Security about keeper and security.
Yeah? Hello? Fine. What I can do is I'm just going to show you some slides here. We have discussed about EC2. EC2 is nothing but a server, and yesterday we have discussed about uh, the security layer of EC2. How can we safeguard our server once created in AWS? That's by different layers of security. So first thing is key pair. We will be having a key pair concept. Like we need to have a key pair, the private key pair. It acts like a key to access our own server. So that's the first thing we have discussed. And after that, we have discussed security group. The security group is nothing but it will define the inbound and outbound traffic to connect our server EC2 instance. And yeah, I think there is no disturbance now. Fine. So just we'll go through these slides. We'll understand things little more better way. So this is what EC2. So our agenda is what AWS we have discussed. AWS is a cloud service. Amazon's cloud service that is just like which provides our an interface to create our organizations and everything. So this is what our agenda. Whatever we are going to cover is just mentioned here. So zone is nothing but what a region. It is mentioned here, but it's in a region. Zone is any availability zone is just like a data center, and in a region. A region is nothing but a geographic location. So all these things we are going to discuss. So recap is just like whatever what is AWS, zones, AMIs, and EC2 is. Under EC2 we will be talking about EC2 introduction. That's what we have seen yesterday. And EC2 instance overview, low cost instance, EC2 tools overview, then EBS introduction. EBS is um, uh, So we will see. Now let us start with EC2. So what is EC2? EC2 is nothing but we have seen it a server provided in the cloud, that's AWS. Now you see it's mentioned here. Amazon EC2 is a web service that enables you to launch and manage server instance in Amazon's data center using APIs available tools, okay, are available tools and utilities. You can use Amazon EC2 server instance at any time for as long as you need and for any legal purpose. Okay, it is just mentioned as legal purpose. Guys, do you hear me? I think there is some network issue here.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay, okay. And I hope you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Your voice is breaking a little bit.
Now, am I audible now?
Yeah, yes, it's
Oh,
perfect.
okay, fine, fine. So that's what. Let's go through some slides here. We can understand in a better way what we have discussed yesterday, and then I'll show you the lab how to perform. Meanwhile, everything from now on, we'll just learn things with the slides and as well as the lab. And I hope I wanted you to get clarified things, whatever the doubt you have on the spot whenever it arises. So it's about EC2. EC2 is nothing but a server we have seen yesterday. Let me come back again. So we have seen something like the types of EC2, different types of EC2 instances we have seen yesterday, and then security layers. So key pair and security group we have discussed yesterday. Now let's go through these slides and understand. So first thing, the first point is mentioned here about EC2 is, so Amazon EC2 is a web service that enables you to launch and manage server instance in instance. So remember, instance is nothing but a server in AWS in Amazon's data center. So whenever we launch an instance, automatically by default we will be launching an instance or a server in the Amazon's data center. So Amazon's data center is nothing but the regions, that those 10 regions which we have seen yesterday. Okay, so the 10 regions have, each region has 2 to 3 data centers in it. So we will be launching an instance in that data centers instance in Amazon's data center using APIs or available tools and utilities. You can use Amazon EC2 server instances at any time, so we can launch an instance anytime we want it and for as long as you need. So we can use it for any amount of time which we require based on our requirement and for any legal purposes. It's mentioned legal purposes just because Amazon will always be very cautious that whatever you are doing in Amazon should be for legal purposes only. If there is a condition in the Amazon's terms that if we utilize for something else, for some other uh, some other non-legal purposes, then Amazon will not bear anything. So that is why it is mentioned for any legal purposes. And instances are available in different sizes. That's what we have seen based on its configuration and configurations. This allows AWS to provide different instance types that you can use to meet specific needs. So we have seen different type of configurations. Based on configurations, how the instances are classified. So there are T type, M type, C type, D type. So there are many type of instances we can use based on our requirement. Then what makes EC2 Amazon EC2 different is that you use only the capacity that you need. This eliminates your need to make large and expensive hardware purchase, reduces that the need to forecast traffic, and enables you to immediately deal with changes in requirement to spikes in popularity related to your application or server. So we use our server, EC2 server, whichever is installed, launched in AWS for all these purposes. So we deal with changes in requirement or spikes in popularity related to your application or server. So this is what the usage or the advantage with the EC2 server once launched in AWS. Okay, so now what is highlight? EC2 highlights. So it's elastic. The first point is elastic. You can expand the configuration, the size of that EC2 server whenever, in however the way you want it. It's nothing but first you have taken a server, maybe M2 server, M3 server you have taken, maybe a couple of, let's for an example, it's just with two CPUs and 2 GB or 4 GB of RAM. Then you wanted to increase its size. It's nothing but you know your server, your instance is not performing up to the mark or reaching out your requirement. Then you wanted to increase its capacity so that it can be done. You can increase, but in a physical way you wanted to increase that, you have to put down your machine. But here in this case, okay, of course, even in this case you may have to put it down, but not like the physical server case. It's nothing but just matter of a minute, for a very little time you will be putting it down. Then it is controlled, flexible, secure, reliable, inexpensive, pre-built AMIs. We have seen what is AMI. AMI is nothing but a pre-bundled configured software. With that, we launch an EC2 instance so that it automatically, it's nothing but the pre-bundled configured software is nothing but it will have OS in it and all the supporting softwares installed automatically once we select that. So these are the easy to highlights. With respect to this, we will be able to perform things very fine. The next, easy to flow. How do we do? First, we find an AMI, okay, whichever is suitable for us. So we wanted a Linux machine or Ubuntu machine or a Windows machine, whatever we wanted, and all the softwares, other softwares we wanted. So we select an AMI. After once that AMI is selected, then we customize. Okay, if we wanted, we can customize an AMI. Okay, customize an existing AMI or build an AMI from search. That is, there is a possibility. Then create our bundled AMI, launch an instance of your AMI, then administrator and use your instances. So it all depends on AMI, what you wanted, how you want how your server should be, how you wanted to create your server. All that depends on your AMI. Then it's the EC2 life cycle. So first, AMI run instances, call to cloud, specify which AMI to launch, provide parameters like instances, security group, etc., etc. Then instances pending, launch initiated, copy AMI S3. Okay, so whatever the AMI we create, that will be copied to S3 bucket. Bucket is nothing but we will discuss that when we talk about S3. So it's a container where we can store our data and assign parameters, then instances pending to instances running. So whenever we create an instance, these are the different stages that an instance can be. So first, while we are trying to create, okay, it will be in pending state. Yeah, Shilpa, don't worry, I'm recording this session. So first it will be in pending session, then it will go to running state. Okay, then after once, okay, it is running, whenever we wanted, we can just shut it down or terminate. There is a little difference in between shutting down and terminate. Shutting down can be done, okay, temporarily. It's like you are using a server, an EC2 instance, and that is to be used from a particular period of time. Okay, so you have an organization, you work for that organization from morning 9 a.m. to 6 a.m. and after that you are not using that server. So why do we need to pay unnecessarily without using it? So what do? So you start a server in the morning 9 o'clock, and then while you go off in the evening 6 o'clock, you temporarily shut it down, which means when it is temporarily shut down, you will be having all your data safe, but your instance will be temporarily shut down so that you will not be paying because it is not working. And when you decide you do not wanted that, okay, your server is not needed, no longer needed by you. In that situation, you terminate it so that it is permanently deleted from your environment. So that's what the different states we have here. So running instance, that running instance is what? Attach EBS storage once running and assign elastic IP. We will see what is elastic.
Phone వింటూ
Hello? So elastic. Hello? Guys, can you mute yourself? Only when there is a doubt, you please unmute yourself and then ask me. Okay? So that's what. So a running instance is attached with EBS storage once running and assign elastic IP. Elastic LP, we will discuss that. And instances shutting down. So resources automatically detached, IP address, storage and all can also be initiated as normal operating system shutdown. Then next is EC2 instance life cycle. So this is what life cycle is. And pricing. So just go through this pricing. It is I think it has changed now, which we have seen yesterday. Okay, so this may not be today's price. We have something different from this. So but pricing is this way. We always see pricing this in this case, like small, large, extra large, micro, medium, double extra large. Based on the configuration, the pricing will always be defined. Then EC2 instance type and size. This is what we have seen. So first thing is general purpose. M1, M3 we don't have M1 now. M4, M3 we have currently, and T2 is nothing but a general purpose and low configuration. That's what is not mentioned here. So general purpose M3 or M4. So instances of this family provides a balanced compute, memory and network resources generally recommended for small and mid-sized databases, data processing tasks that require additional memory, caching fleets, and for running backend servers for SAP, Microsoft, SharePoint, and other enterprise applications. So that for that purposes we use that. And next, compute optimized instance, C3, C4 instances of this family. Really? I think my connection is fine here. Is my voice okay now? You able to hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah, fine.
it's okay now, but sometimes it's getting
Okay. So please notify me whenever you have some problem. Okay, I hope it's fine now because there is no problem with my network now. Then so compute instance, just go through. So what for it is used, they have a higher ratio of vCPUs to memory than other families and low cost per vCPU. Virtual vCPU is nothing but virtual CPU and recommended for scalable applications like high traffic front end, fleet, on demand batch processing, distributed analytics, web servers, batch processing, and high performance science and engineering applications. Like this instance, compute instance also provide a number of advanced capabilities, and Intel Xeon E52670 processor, high core count, and up to 36 vCPUs we can have, virtual CPUs we can have with respect to this compute optimized instances. Then memory optimized instances. Okay, so memory is nothing but R type. We have seen R type instances. So that R type instances are nothing but instances of this family are optimized for memory intensive applications. They have the lowest cost per gigabyte of RAM recommended for many database applications for memcached and other distributed caches, and large deployment of enterprise applications like SAP and Microsoft SharePoint. Then these instances are the latest generation of memory optimized instances and provide even more memory of 244 gigabytes. We have seen that yesterday. So the maximum RAM size is of 244 gigabytes. So such a huge system can be, taken or created or launched in AWS. We do have such an option in AWS. Run on faster CPUs. So this is what the capacity of memory optimized instances. Okay, Intel Xeon E52670 with NUMA support compared to M2 instances. Then EC2 instance types and size. Under that we do have another types like storage optimized instances. Okay, there is a little change with the terminology. I mean, like naming convention here. We don't have HS, but understand we have seen what and all the different types we have. So storage optimized instances, that instances of this family provides you with direct attached storage. Okay, options optimized for applications with specific disk I/O. I/O is nothing but input or output operations, and storage capacity requirements. And these type of instances provide very fast SSD. Why my voice is not properly reaching out you? Hope there is no issue because my network is very clear here. Am I audible now? Hello? Hello? Okay, fine. So let's see. Where we are. Okay, so SSD backed instances, storage capable of supporting over 120,000 random read IOPS, and are optimized for very high random IOPS performance and low cost per IOPS. So this is what based on different IOPS. Okay, whenever we wanted huge IOPS, we go with storage optimized instances. Then cluster GPU instances of this family provides general purpose graphic processing G-type. We have seen G-type instances of processing units GPU. IOPS is nothing but input operations per second. Okay, so don't worry. IOPS is nothing but I stands for input, O stands for output, per second, P per S second. So then cluster GPU instances G-type instances of this family provide general purpose graphics processing unit GPUs with proportionally high CPU and increased network performance for applications benefiting from highly personalized processing. So These are the different type of instances and their sizes. Okay, general purpose. There may be a little change in the naming convention, but understand the number of vCPUs and the processor attached to it, then the memory and pricing. So these are the different types we have currently. Then ECU versus vCPU. Okay, now let's see. vCPUs are now the units of measures on Amazon's EC2 instance description page. So a vCPU is virtually central processing unit. Virtual central processing unit. Okay, a multi-core processor has two or more vCPUs. vCPU is more standard measure of shared CPU power used in clouds such as VMware's vCloud. So vCloud is nothing but another cloud. So it's just comparing by itself with vCloud. Then the amount of CPU that is allocated to a particular instance is expressed in terms of the EC2 compute units. So ECU provides the relative measures of the integer processing power of an Amazon EC2 instance. It is simply a unit for CPU comparison between instances. It is not an actual CPU. So that's what we have to make a note of. Then two instances each with two vCPUs will not necessarily be equivalent. One instance could reside on top of a 2012 based processor, while the other could reside on top of a 2014 based processor. So you can have multiple hardware systems with your EC2 instance. So that is what the flexibility we have with that. Then instances and image types we are going to discuss under that. Different instances. So this is what we have seen, the types of instances based on the revenue and pricing model. So first thing is under that is on-demand instances. So on-demand instances is nothing but whenever you want an instance, you will be demanding with the Amazon so that you can just take an instance, it's a server, whenever you wanted, and whatever the time constraint you wanted to use that you can use. And whenever you're done with your work, you can say yes, we are done, so that you can terminate it. Terminate is nothing but a permanent shutdown. So that is the point here. And so under that, so on-demand instances let you pay for compute capacity by the hour with no long-term commitments. So that's what. So it's not about long-term commitments. This frees you from the cost and complexities of planning, purchasing, and maintaining hardware. Transforms what are commonly large fixed costs into much smaller variable cost. So of course you're paying very less, but it is not designed for a long term. Okay, so that is what we have to understand about on-demand instances. Then next we have reserved instances. We also have seen that, and after that we have spot instances. Let's see what is reserved instance here. Reserved instance gives you the option to make a low one-time payment for each instance you want to reserve, and in turns receive a significant discount. That's what we have seen yesterday, right? So whenever you say you wanted to go with a reserved instance for about a year or 3 years or something like that for a long tenure, Amazon by itself will give you a discount so that you can just have an instance for your organization dedicatedly for any amount of time you wanted to use that. That's what significant discount on the hourly usage charge for that instance. After the one-time payment for an instance, that instance is reserved for you, dedicatedly assigned for your organization, and you have no further obligations. You may choose to run that instance for the discounted usage rate for the duration of your terms, or when you do not use the instance, you will not pay usage charges on it. So we do have such option. You pay only for the amount of time you use that. So that is really very nice, right? Then next is spot instances. So we can bid with Amazon. Under that, spot instances allow customers to bid on unused unused Amazon EC2 capacity and run those instances for as long as their bid exceeds the current spot price. So that's what. For example, the market price is going. We have discussed it, 8 cents per hour, but you have bidded it for 10 cents per hour. But still, Amazon will provide you, okay, for 8 cents per hour only. How long you can use that instance? You can use that instance till the price of that instance, that spot instance, goes beyond your bidding price, that 10 cents. So till the price of that Amazon instance, EC2 instance, goes to 10 cents, you will be able to utilize that. Once it reaches more than 10 cents per hour, it is automatically terminated from your location or organization. So that is a point. Then the spot price changes periodically based on the supply and demand. Of course, it's just like a share market. Customers whose bid meet or exceeds it gain access to available spot instances. Who meets its bid? If you have flexibility in which, yeah, about notifying them, you have an option. When it is a spot instance, usually Amazon will not notify, or even if they notify, they'll notify before after terminating the instance. First, they'll terminate the instance from you, then they'll notify you. Okay, but there is an option that if you are in the middle of something, some activity, if you wanted Amazon people to notify you, you can just avail that option. So they'll notify, but they'll not wait for any longer period of time. They will just terminate like that, because it's a spot instance and it's all about the bidding price. You are going to pay only so much. So when you're paying only so much, obviously they'll be worried about the payment. So first they'll terminate the instance from you. And so this is all about spot instance. So what we are discussing. So if you have flexibility in when your applications can run, spot instances can significantly lower your Amazon EC2 cost, of course, because we have decided what amount we are trying to pay, we wanted to pay in this case. So that's all about three different type of instances based on their revenue pricing model, which we have already seen to yesterday. Then Amazon EC2 reserved instances. This is already seen. So what it is, Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud reserved instances enable you to reserve capacity for your EC2 instances, lower your average instance cost. So because we are using it for a longer period of time. Then with a reserved instance, you pay a low one-time fee. Because you have an agreement with the Amazon that you wanted to use it for such a long period of time. So you'll make an agreement and you pay only for that amount of time, and then you are allowed to use for any number of time. You can do in any whatever the way you wanted to use that, but legally. Make a note. So this is what Amazon EC2 reserved instances. So Amazon EC2 reserved instances enable you to maintain the benefits of elastic computing while lowering cost and preserving capacity. With reserved instances, you pay low one-time fee and in turns receive a significant discount on the hourly charges for the instance. So these are the benefits we have with a reserved instance. It's cost effective, it's flexible, scale with your business. That's what pay as you go option only. Always it is about pay as you go. So it is mentioned, you cost effective is nothing but pay as you go model only. You are paying, okay, only for the amount of time you're utilizing. So significant discount on the hourly charge for that instance. Okay, so cost effective is that pay as you go. It's flexible. You can utilize it in any way, in any manner you wanted to use that. Scale with your business, so you can just expand it whenever you want it. Reliable, easy to use, and marketplace available. So these are the advantages we have with the reserved instances. Reserved instance, light utilization. Okay, so you see 1 year term, 3 year terms, then upfront hourly. So these are the different charges we have, but it may be changed. It might change now. So for example, just go through this slide. So small, medium, large, extra large, for all these purposes we have different prices here, but that price is comparatively very cheaper than. About prices, you just go through the pricing of EC2 in the Google directly. So that will give you the current date, because the pricing will always change day to day. So that there you can just confirm. Next, AMIs. What do you mean by AMI? That's what we have seen. An Amazon EC2 instance can be launched either from an AMI backed by Amazon S3 or an AMI backed by Amazon EBS. So there are two different type of instances, that is EBS backed instance and instance backed instance stored AMI, sorry. So AMI is nothing but what? The basic thing you remember, it is a pre-bundled configured software which provides you the OS, operating system, and all the supporting softwares with that. So first thing is EBS backed instances, elastic block storage. EBS stands for. Then it stores its root device as an Amazon EBS volume, which is nothing but whatever the volume you take along with that instance. Entire AMI, it's nothing but it's configurational stuff, that OS and all will be installed in that EBS volume. EBS volume is nothing but the storage disk. In that, the OS and all the softwares are installed, so that if something goes wrong with your your instance, but you can still retrieve it from that volume whichever is there in your account. When this type of instance is launched, Amazon automatically create an Amazon EBS volume. So this is what we will be seeing when we create an instance, on-demand instance. Whenever we create, automatically there will be an EBS volume created from the associated AMI snapshot. So snapshots are of different size. Whatever the snapshot we have, basically 8 GB, or whenever we go with a Linux machine, it will be of 8 GB, 8 gigabytes of space basically in our Amazon. If you go with Microsoft Windows machine, then it will be of 32 gigabytes of space. So such a amount of EBS volume is created by default, so that is to be noted. Then any changes to the local storage are then persisted in this EBS volume and will survive instance failure and restarts. So whenever you are doing some activity with your EC2 instance, you can still be safe, because your entire configurational stuff is stored on such a volume, so you can just get it whenever you want it. The EBS volume is mounted as the root device, meaning that you will also be billed for storage. So this is what we have to make a note, that you are not only paying for an EC2 instance, but also paying for the storage, that EBS volume whichever is created. So that is what we have to make a note of, so that you will also be billed for storage of all static data such as operating system files, etc., external to your application or configuration. Okay, so next is AMI types. then S3 instance, EBS instance, EBS backed and instance backed instances. Okay, so it is mentioned S3 instance, but instance backed we say instance backed instances. It's nothing but there will not be any EBS volume created when you go with this type of AMIs. It will give you direct control over what files to persist. This flexibility comes at a price. Since S3 backed instances or instance backed instances use local storage as their root device, you will have to manually attach and mount an EBS volume for persisting your data. So the difference is, whenever you create an instance with EBS backed AMI, okay, if something goes wrong with that, you can still be safe. You can create another instance from that volume whichever is available, which is nothing but we will see practically terminating or is nothing but temporarily shut down or permanently shutting it down. So when you create an instance with EBS backed AMI, you can temporarily shut it down and then get it back whenever you want, and your data will be safe with that EBS backed instance. But instance backed instance, your data will not be safe, because whenever you are temporarily shutting it down or permanently shutting it down, your data will be erased permanently. Okay, so that's what we have to make a note. Then so that is what is mentioned here. Since S3 backed instance use local storage as the root device, you will have to manually attach and mount an EBS volume for persisting your data. Your data will not be safe with instance backed instance. Okay, so with EBS backed instance, it will be safe. Even when you shut it down and get it back, your data will be safe, still be safe. Once your S3 backed instance is terminated, any local storage will be lost, but your original data and configuration will persist in your EBS volume. So always, whenever you wanted to have your data, you should have an EBS volume. Amazon EBS backed AMIs launch faster than Amazon EC2 instance store backed AMI. So this is what another difference. So EBS backed are always faster than instance store backed AMI. So the differences between instance store backed AMIs and EBS backed EBS backed AMIs. So AMI is nothing but what you just remember, which will provide us all the softwares which were we needed. Then AMI types. So the first thing is pending or launch. Once it is launched, it will be in running state. Okay. Then from running state, you can either stop or start. So there is an option of stop and start. It is nothing but stop is a temporary shutdown. Remember that. Stop is always a temporary shutdown that is possible by EBS backed AMIs. Okay. With instant store backed AMIs, there is no stop and start option. You will be permanently terminating it. So terminated is the final option. Once you say terminate, it will be deleted. That instance will be deleted from your location or from your organization. You will be losing that server forever. So that is what terminate is the final option. So when an Amazon EBS backed instance is stopped, you are not charged for instance usage. However, you are still charged for volume storage. Okay, that EBS volume whichever is created, you are charged for that. So that should be remembered. And AWS charge a full instance R for every transition from a stopped state to running state, even if you transition the instance multiple times within a single hour. So every time it calculates into 1 hour, though you use it for a matter of minutes time. And for example, let's say The early instance charges for your instance is $0.10, which is nothing but 10 cents. If you were to run that instance for 1 hour without stopping it, you would be charged 10 cents. If you stopped and restarted that instance twice during the hour, you would be charged 30 cents for that hour of usage. That's what this is how it is charged. The initial is 10 cents plus 2 times you are stopping it and starting, so 10 cents for 2 times while you're stopping it, starting it. Then for each start you are paying 1 hour charge, so that is what 10 cents. So that's really a point to be noted down. In terms of pricing, so we usually don't do that, but still you have to make a note of it. Then AMI types, the characteristics, Amazon EBS instance stored. So this is the difference between EBS and instance stored AMIs. So their life cycle, data persistence, boot time, size limit, location, upgrading, charges, AMI creation. So all that, these are the different types we have. You see, quickly we'll go through this. Support stopping and restarting of instance by saving states of state to EBS. But here instance cannot be stopped, it is either running or terminated state. So you can directly terminate but not stop and get it back again. Because whenever you stop, you should have some volume to have your data safe in that. But in case of instance stored, we do not have any volume to have our data, so you cannot stop and start it, you can directly terminate only. But whenever we create, it will always be in our AWS. Whenever we create, we in our labs, we will always be creating an EBS stored volume only, EBS stored instance, AMI only we take. Then data persist in EBS. In EBS, on instance failure or restart, data can also be configured to persist when instance is terminated, although it does not do so by default. Instance storage does not persist on instance shutdown or failures. It is possible to attach non-root, make a note that, non-root device using EBS for data persistence as needed. So whenever you wanted data to be safe, then you always have to attach a volume to that. Only then your data will be safe. Even after you terminate, you can get it back. But when there is no volume, whatever the data stored locally will be erased permanently once you terminate this instance. So whenever you're worried about data, always you better go with EBS. But the thing is, in these cases, in EBS backed AMI, you're paying for the instance and as well as paying for the volume whichever you are taking along with the instance. But here in this case, you are paying only for the instance, where instance stored AMI. That in terms of price. But your data, your flexibility, an EBS backed AMI instance can be stopped and started back. Your data will be safe. That option is provided. But here instance stored AMI, you will not be able to do that. You cannot stop and start it. Then boot time usually less than 1 minute, and this is usually less than 5 minutes. So it also takes some time to boot by itself. Then size limit, it is 1 TB up to 1 TB. Then this is just a matter of 10 gigabytes to 160 gigabytes. So that is another concern. Then location, Amazon EBS volume, this is instance stored. And upgrading, the kernel instance type and RAM disk can be changed while the instance is stopped. So you can change its configuration. Your EC2 instance configurations can be changed once you launch an instance with EBS backed AMI, but that's not possible to do with instance stored AMI. So instance attributes are fixed for the life of an instance. Whenever you wanted to scale up, you will not be able to do that. Scaling up or scaling down of configuration of your instance is not possible with that. And charges, instance usage, Amazon EBS volume of usage, and AMI storage. So for all these three things you have to pay if you go with Amazon EBS AMI. But in this case, AMI, instance stored AMI, you will be charged only for instance usage and AMI storage. The additional thing is you are paying for the volume here in this case, but you have all these flexibilities. Then charges, okay, we are done. AMI creation uses a single command or call, requires installation and use of AMI tools. So this is another thing we have to go. So finally, just tell me how many, different type of instances do we have based on its pricing or revenue model? We have seen there are three different type of
Yes.
instances based on its pricing and revenue model. So those are
On demand,
exactly on demand,
spot and reserved.
reserved and spot. So that's fantastic. I wanted you to be interactive in this session so that it will be live and healthy. Then easy to instance addressing. Okay, so addressing, how do we address that? We always have to connect it to an EC2 instance. So by default, we need to have something, some addresses so that we'll be able to communicate with that. That's what a private IP address. So see here, every instance, whenever it is created, by default, we will have two IP addresses allocated or assigned to it. The two IP addresses are nothing but one is private IP address and public IP address. Private IP address is only for us whenever we wanted to communicate with that instance internally within the organization. When externally we wanted to log into that, we must need to have a public IP address. Then only we can communicate. And there is an option that you wanted to have a public IP address or not. And private DNS name internal for internal usage and public DNS name for Amazon AWS.com. So you can directly log in or connect it to that instance publicly from an external network. Then external elastic IP address. What is this elastic IP address? We have private and public IP address. Apart from this, an elastic IP address is used just because whenever you stop and start your instance, okay, every single time you stop and start your instance, your public IP address changes. So it will be a little difficult for the people you provide the public IP address every single time you change or you stop and start so that they connect to it. Rather, what you do is you assign an elastic IP to that, so that will be static. N number of times you stop and start your instance, there will not be any change in the IP address allocated to it once you go with an elastic IP address. But remember, you are charged for elastic IP address. We will see all these things practically, not to worry. So elastic IP addresses are static IP address which will not change, addresses designed for dynamic cloud computing. An elastic IP address is associated with your account, not a particular instance. So per an account, there is a limit of 5 IP addresses. Okay, only 5 IP addresses, elastic IP addresses you can use, which are static. And whenever you, as you go with an elastic IP address, it must need to be associated with a instance. If not, you are charged. So, and you control that IP address until you choose to explicitly release it. So you do not want it, you release it. So these are the charges. IP address charging if it is an elastic IP, excuse me. So 0.005 dollars per non-attached. So whenever you take an elastic IP, it must needs to be associated with an instance, so that you will not be paying. So this is what you see, 0.00 per elastic IP address remap. First 100 remaps per month are free. Then so much you are going to charge for a non-attached elastic IP address per complete hour. So whenever you go with, you have to associate it with an instance. Then we will see, I'll show you an elastic IP address, the uses with that. So elastic IP address are static IP addresses designed for Amazon Cloud. An elastic IP address belongs to the user AWS account and is not bound to a particular instance. It is not related to any instance, but it is, related to your account. That's what I said. The user can control the elastic IP addresses until the user explicitly release it. Release, you must have to release whenever you are not using it. And elastic IP addresses help the user to achieve the high availability. That's what I said. So whenever you stop and start your instance, automatically your public IP address changes. When you wanted a static IP address, you will be going with an elastic IP address in. An Amazon account can have a maximum of 5 elastic IPs per region. So this is what the limit. Each region you can have only 5 elastic IP addresses, not more than that. So elastic IP addresses are allocated to, hello? Elastic IP addresses are allocated to accounts and can be remapped to their instances when desired. So whenever you want, you create an elastic IP, you associate with the instance, and when you do not want it, that you reassociate, okay, disassociate, then release it. Releasing is nothing but deleting whenever not, you are not using. So these are the things, elastic IP addresses. You see, database server, web server, you have two different type of servers, the first point, and the second point, okay, to the EC2 instance. You are just trying to map to an EC2 instance, but that's not possible. Your IP addresses, you just focus on your IP addresses, okay, and when you have an IP address, you can always map to something any a number of times. Okay, you just change your EC2 instances, you can still have something, you can still connect to something with respect to your static IP address. That is the usage of elastic IP. It is static just because it is static, but normal IP addresses which we directly get when we create a instance, it is never static. So any number of times you stop and start, it will change, so that the connecting to that will always be a difficult or challenging task to that. So for a web server, whenever you're creating a web server, it is better, it is suggested to go with an elastic IP. Then security group we have seen yesterday. So a security group is, it just acts like a firewall. That's what we have discussed. That controls the traffic allowed to each to reach one or more instances when you launch. So it's nothing but you once create a security group, the same security group can be used for any number of instances. There is no such limit, or there is nothing like you create an instance with different security groups. Every instance need a difference. It's not that. Once you create a security group, that security group can be used for any number of instances. So that's why it is mentioned. A security group acts as a firewall that controls all the traffic allowed to reach one or more instances. When you launch an instance, you assign it to one or more security groups. You can have that. You can add rules to each security group that controls traffic for the instance, and the new rules are automatically applied. So this is what security groups are static. Static in the sense, and stateful in the sense, whenever you change, okay, whenever you change your security group, automatically those changes are applied on the spot within no time. So that's what they are stateful, I can say. Okay, so you can add rules to each security group that controls traffic for the instance. The new rules are automatically applied to all the instances to which the security group is assigned. They are designed to control who can communicate. That's what with respect to inbound traffic, which we have set, which we have seen yesterday. So they are designed to control who can communicate, initiate communication with your machine, nothing but instance. The default security group in each AWS region that automatically create for your account by Amazon does not allow any incoming connection. So that's what we have seen. There will not be any inbound by defaultly set. So everything, whenever you need to communicate with your EC2 instance, so you have to set an inbound rule, then only you can do that. Okay. So that is the point. And the default security group, that's what we have seen, right? So in each region will not allow incoming connection. Therefore, you will need to create a new security group that will be used for your production instances or modify default group. So you have to change your security group whenever you need to communicate with that. Okay, then EC2 security groups. So this is what a little diagram you can just understand. Amazon EC2 security group that will allow you to security group for EC2 classic, default security group for EC2 VPC, then create your own security group. So this and all you can do with a security group. Then we have seen how to create a security group. So this is an older version of slide, but still you just remember how we create a security group. We have seen how to create a security group yesterday. Then access credentials, Amazon security access. In the process of authentication with AWS, you use your credentials and part of the request itself to create a digital signature. With respect to security group, it is possible. Okay, the authentication is another layer of security that you have to authenticate yourself to log into it. You send request to the signature to AWS. AWS then verify the signature to confirm you are the sender of the request. You get the access to the product only if the signature passes verification. The credentials you use depends on the type of API. So another additional layer of security, whenever you want it, you use the different APIs and then you set it for that. The REST and the query APIs use your access key and the credentials. So access key, secret access key, we will see that later on. Then the Amazon EC2 key pair enables you to access the instances you launch, and Amazon CloudFront key pair enables you to create single signed URLs to access private CloudFront content. So we'll see what is CloudFront is. Not to worry, everything is seen very clear. Then Amazon security, so account identifiers, then AWS account ID, then canonical user ID. We will see what is canonical ID and all. So first thing, Amazon account identifiers. AWS assigns 2 unique IDs to each AWS account. That's what you have seen, right? I mean, like whenever you create, there will be a 12-digit account ID is created and assigned to your account, so that you will have accountability. You will be having a connectivity. Whenever you log in, you'll have your own things with respect to that account ID. Okay, so AWS account ID is what if you want to let someone else use one of your AWS resources like Amazon EC2 AMI and all, snapshot, EBS snapshot, or Amazon SQSQ, etc., etc. You use that AWS account ID to specify the account. Example this. Okay. Typically, the AWS product requires you to remove the hyphens from the ID. So, okay. So without any hyphens, you will be having an account ID provided once you create your account, AWS account. So that's what a 12-digit ID. Then canonical user ID. If you want to share Amazon's S3 resources with another AWS account, you use this ID, specify the account. The ID is a long string. So what do you mean by an account ID? To recognize yourself, okay? Whenever you wanted to share something from your account to somebody else, you will be recognized with that ID provided to your account. So that is what you remember with that. Then Amazon EC2 key pair, we have seen how to create a key pair. So a key pair works as a key to access our instances. So the public and private keys are known as key pair. AWS only store the public key and you store the private key. Okay, so public key is with the Amazon EC2 instance and private key is with you. So you have to assign both of them, then only you'll be able to connect it to that. That's the basic layer of security whenever you wanted to communicate or connect to an EC2 instance. Anyone who passes your private key can decrypt your login information. So it is stored very securely in your own location and you should safeguard it by your own self. So Amazon will not bother anything about your private key, the key pair. So we have seen, I hope you remember. Do you remember a key pair? And can you just tell me what format once it is downloaded, whenever it is created, what extension do we have? Am I
Yeah,
clear with that?
P
PPK.
No, PPK is not the extension whenever we,
PPK. PPK.
no, it's not PPK.
P
When created, when a keypair
PEM.
is created, okay, it will be automatically downloaded into our local machine, but the extension is, remember, it is .pem. Okay, by default it is .pem format. It will be downloaded into. Then later on we will change that extension from .pem to ppk format. We have seen that. I hope you remember how to change that. Okay, so one moment. One moment, please. I need to attend this call. It's an office call. Sorry for the disturbance. That's an office call I had to attend. So key pair, remember whenever an EC2 key pair, a private key, whenever it is downloaded, it will be downloaded into a PEM format. Do not forget this. And we will be converting it from PEM format to PPK format. The thing is, why do we convert from PEM to PPK is because when you wanted to connect to your Linux or Unix machine from a Windows OS laptop or server, you should have a PPK format key pair. If you are connecting, okay, a machine of certain OS from the same OS server, then you will need to have a PEM format only. It's nothing but a Windows machine from Windows OS server. When you are trying to connect, then PEM format will help you. A Unix machine from a Unix OS laptop or server, PM format will help you. But different OS your instance, when you're trying to connect from different OS laptop or server, whichever you have, okay, then PPK format is needed. So that's what we have seen, how to convert from PM to PPK by using PuttyGen software. I hope you have downloaded it, and I hope you all have created your accounts. Have you? We use Putty to connect to a machine, but PuttyGen is used to convert a key pair from PM to PPK. So that's what you use an Amazon EC2 key pair each time you launch an EC2 Linux or Unix or Windows instance. The key pair ensures that only you have access to the instance, so it is security parameter. You can have up to 5,000 key pairs per region. So remember how many key pairs you can have per region. You can have 5,000 key pairs. That's the limit. Each key pair requires a name. You have two options for creating a key pair: while you launch an instance, or before launching an instance, directly go to key pairs and create a key pair. So these are the two different ways you can launch or create a key pair. Okay, and it's not that every instance need to have different key pairs. Once you create a key pair like security group, the same key pair can be used for any number of instances. So that is another thing with the key pairs. Then what next? Amazon key pairs. So Amazon key pair enables you to connect to the instance through SSH. If it is a Linux machine, you must create an RSA, public or private key pair. So this is just acts like the key pair acts like an RSA token, which you use to ensure that only you have access to the instance that you launch. You have two options for getting the key pair. That's how. So generate it yourself with the third-party tools such as OpenSSH, and then import the public key to AWS using either the EC2 import key pair command or the import key pair action. So we will see how to use that key pair while we launch an EC2 instance. That's compulsory. We must need to have a key pair. Without key pair, we'll not be able to launch an EC2 instance. And the next case, have AWS generate the key pair for you using the AWS Management Console, the EC2 and key pair command, or the creation key pair action. With either options, AWS doesn't store a copy of the private key. That's another point you have to remember. Amazon EC2 only store the public key and associate it with a friendly key pair name you specify. So a private key will always be stored in your private location and should be safely stored it. Once you lose that key pair, private key pair, then you lost your server. You will not be able to connect to that anymore. So that's the point. Next, EC2 tools. So these are the different tools, like these are the older versions, but we will see the new things. So graphic tools, Elastic Fox and all. Remember EC2 tools and instance setup. So we will see something practically now. Whatever we have discussed yesterday. Okay. So these are the. This is what the new look of an EC2 instance. So it's a dashboard. As I said, every service will have its own dashboard. There is no running instance currently, so we are trying to go launch. We have seen how to create a key pair. We have seen how to create a security group and set its inbound traffic. So this is what a Linux AMI we have taken yesterday. So AMI is must needed. With that only you will be able to launch a server or an instance with a proper OS, whatever the OS it needs to have and all. Then we have selected that. After once that is done, so the free tier eligible thing we have to take, that's the different type of EC2 instance. We have selected that. Okay. The next we need to understand the configuration instances. So how many, what instances you have to take. The number of instances. You wanted only one instance, or you wanted to change, create any number of instances. You wanted 5 instances at a time to be created. So you can take 5 here. So you can do that. If you wanted to purchase a spot instance, okay, then you just check this box so that you will be bidding with the Amazon. So directly here. So you have to, estimate everything. You just have to mention your maximum price, launch group. As I said that you should, if you wanted to get notified, okay, so you have to check this persistent request. If you click this, then you can just, and your request valid from when you wanted to, validate your request. When you want to launch your instance, you can just notify that for the future purpose also. Then request valid to, from, and to. So how long you wanted to validate your request. Within that time, if you get a server, okay, an instance with your required price, you will get that. Then network and also. Okay, once you click on this spot instances, only for spot instances, you should check that box. Okay, unchecked. And then network, you will be logging, you will be launching an instance under a VPC, virtual private cloud. So by default we'll have one VPC created for every region, so we'll be doing it in that. But when you wanted your own dedicated network, you will be creating another VPC. We will see that separately in a VPC class. Then subnet, understand for now, subnet is nothing but an availability zone. In which availability zone you wanted to create this server instance. So availability zone is nothing but a data center of Amazon in a particular region. So in this Sydney region, we are currently in Sydney region, we have 3 different availability zones. So whichever the availability zone you wanted to launch your instance, you can select, or if you don't have any preferences, you can just select it by default, whatever it is available. Then assign a public IP. By default, it will be enabled. If you do not want it, you can disable it also. When you don't want it to connect to that EC2 instance publicly, then you can just disable this public IP only for internal purpose if you wanted to use that. Then IAM role, we will understand about IAM role once we talk about IAM, security, identity and access management. Not to worry, I'll tell you what it is. Then shutdown behavior, you wanted to stop it so that you can start it whenever you wanted later on, or you can directly, you wanted to terminate it. So once you mention this stop or terminate, if you mention terminate, you will have only one option, that is to be terminated. You will not be able to stop for the future purpose and then start it back again. But you have to say, when you select stop, you will have either of the options. You can terminate or stop and start later on. Then enable termination protection. Once you click on this, okay, what happens? You have created a server, but you have provided access to your team members, okay, and they log into your management console and then unfortunately or fortunately do something nasty with that server and delete it. Entire things are lost. So you can safeguard your instance by checking this termination protection whenever you are trying. Even if you wanted to terminate also, you'll not be able to do that. Okay, so you should go and disable this termination protection, then only you will be able to do that. So for security purposes, nothing but for the safety purpose, if you do not want it to terminate accidentally, then it is selected. Monitoring, it is by default every instance will have some monitoring provided to it. Okay, so if you wanted a detailed monitoring, then you have to select it. So the difference between monitoring and detailed monitoring is the normal default monitoring will have 5 minutes check. For every 5 minutes, it will check your health status, the instance health status. But if you go with detailed monitoring, it will be checking for every minute, but that charges you additionally. So that's what you have to remember. So this is what the configuration instance. So let it be simple as that. I'm not going to do anything different. Then adding storage. So you defaultly have 8 gigabytes of storage attached to it, because whatever the AMI we have selected is an EBS backed AMI. So that's why it has taken an 8 gigabytes of you know um, volume by default. If you wanted additional volumes, you can just change here, and you wanted that space to be more than what that 8 gigabytes, you can just for example, you wanted 20 gigabytes, you can do that. So anything you wanted, you can just do that. Okay, so that is the point. Next, I'm not doing it anything, then go next. One thing I wanted to show you. So you see, for a free tier eligible customers, you can get up to 30 gigabytes of EBS general purpose SSD or magnetic storage. We will discuss what is this in different type of volumes. Okay, so about free tier usage eligibility and usage, it is restriction. So only 30 gigabytes of volume you can have. That may be in terms of one more volume or multiple volumes, but the limit is only 30 gigabytes for a free tier eligibility. So make a note of that. Don't take a volume which is more than that attached to an instance. Then tagging. You see, you will have a number of servers created, but for what purpose you are creating that server? If you wanted to make a note, okay, you should have a tagging for that. So this is just a test box which we are creating. So a test server, anything you wanted to name, it's up to you. For your understanding, you're tagging that server. Okay, so tagging is that it is important, and this is where we attach excuse me, a security group. So we have already created a security group, so I'm just going to take which is already existing. So select an existing one. What is that we have created? We have created this SID SG, then review and launch. So this is how we create an instance. Okay, so once you say review and launch, an instance will be created. This quick, you can launch an instance. We'll see a few more slides now. So AWS command line tools setup, that you will have to do that. Download the Amazon AWS SDK tools .zip file from following link. So this is where you can just do that, because when you wanted to do things using command line, that is what in real time it does. Okay, for a security purpose, we go everything with the commands. So for that, you know, you wanted to download that, you can do it from this link. Then extract downloaded files to any directory in a local drive. So that's what. Then copy pk and set file. So all these things. So how to use, how to set command line tools. So this is what we do. Then basic Amazon EC2. What do we do? This is just, you know, attaching a key pair, access ID and all. Then elastic block storage, EBS. So we will discuss EBS later on, but let's see how to create an instance. So this is what, once you go review launch, excuse me, so you can launch an instance. You can just still change if you wanted to change anything. Okay, you can still do that here. So it's nothing but you're going to check what and all you have taken. You have taken a T2 micro instance. You have taken, okay, it will give you a little warning. Let's see what's that. You see it's mentioning improve your instance security. Your security group CDSG is open to the world. It's saying your security group is open to the world so that anybody can connect to your instance. But still fine because we are just testing it. So let it be open to the world. Not an issue. Then what you have taken, what AMI you have taken Amazon Linux AMI. Then instance type is what, T2 micro instance. Then security group, what security group you have taken, it is just CDSC, so that you can check everything what and all you have what configurations you have taken to launch this instance. And you wanted to change, you can still do that by just checking edit option, or you can still do that by going previous. So I'm just launching it. The moment you say launch, so this is where we attach a key pair. Okay, so a key pair is pretty much compulsory to launch an instance and to connect to the instance. So that is what the security we have discussed so far. What I'll do, if you wanted to create a new one, you can just create a new one. You wanted to do that. If you do not want it to connect to this instance, you can go with without any key pair, but you must have to do when you wanted to connect. So what we have created yesterday, sit kp. So that's what I'm taking, and you must need to acknowledge that you have this key pair with you. Then only it will allow you to launch. See, this option is grayed out here, so you should acknowledge that you have. Then it will be highlighted so that you can just go and launch instance. Yes, launch. This is how an instance is launched, a server is launched. Now you see how quick. Actually we have discussed so many things, all the parameters, all the steps one after the other, so that it has taken so much of time. But once you are aware of creating it, so it's quite easy that you can just launch an instance within no time. Fine, you're done, you have launched an instance, you will have a server with you now. Okay, so this is what the server is. Okay, this is just a notification given, that not to worry. So first it is in running state. Okay, from running state it needs to come. Okay, it's of course it is in run, it will be in running state, but status checks, it is initializing state. Once after the status checks initialization is completed, it will come to 2x2 status checks. How, what are those 2x2 status checks? We will discuss that in monitoring level, but not to worry, I'll show you what is that. So you go to status checks. Okay, in this status checks you will be able to see that so what is that, system status checks and instance status checks. So these are the two status checks should be completed, and they should properly complete without any issue. Then 2x2 status checks it will come, then your server is healthy. So that you can just make a note of, but still you can just go. So you see what and all the details you have, the description, and that description you can just see here. So instance ID is that always we deal with the instance ID. Every instance when created will be provided with an ID, and instance state it's running, then instance type it's T2 micro private DNS private IP address. Okay, then VPC, in which VPC we have created, it is by default thing we have taken. Then subnet. So subnet is nothing but an availability zone, which availability zone you have created that. Then okay, network interface, that's ETH0, then all this. So these are the different, all the details, configuration details of your instance, EC2 instance you have created. Okay, now let's see how to launch this instance. Okay, we already have the key pair created and converted into PPK, because we are trying to launch an instance from my current laptop OS is Windows. So from Windows machine we are trying to launch a Linux machine, so of different OS we must need a key pair of PPK. So we did it yesterday, we've converted that. I think I've shown you, so hope you remember how to do that. Now let's go and launch. So to launch an instance, you either have to take its public IP or the complete public DNS name. You have a public DNS name here in this location, and you also have the same thing here. Okay, so you can take the complete public IP address or public DNS name totally. So let's go with this is my practice. It's not compulsory that you have to take public IP. So it's my practice that I always take this. I've copied it. Then go to putty, paste it here. I think I told you people that key pair is very compulsory, that while you create instance and while you connect to the instance. So where do we attach this key pair? Okay, you have to copy and make sure the port number 22 is taken. Go to SSH. In that SSH, go to auth. This is where you have to provide your key pair. In that auth, you should browse here. Okay, then take that key pair. So you see, always it will show you PPK directly, because you're trying to launch a Linux machine from Windows OS box. So take that, whichever you have created, you have assigned it to that instance, then open. Yes, it is opened. Now you go open. Without key pair, you will not be able to do that. So it should come like this. Then the username is always, remember, EC2 hyphen user to launch an Amazon Linux machine. Then enter. You will not need any password. It will directly launch login. So that's all. You logged into a server. You just created a server. Then you have connected to that server. Now you can do anything you wanted. So how quick you could able to launch? You have created a server and installed OS, all the supporting softwares. I mean, like whatever that AMI has, the pre-configured softwares, all those are available in this. So that is what the advantage of cloud technology, that you can launch, you can your servers, anything you wanted within no time, or within very less time you can do that. Clear? So this is what your server is. Now your box is, you can do anything now. That's how things are to be created and then used. Okay, now fine, you see your 2x2 status checks, it has come to. Now when you go and check that, both of them are passed. Earlier it was initializing. Now you see the system reachability check passed and instance reachability check passed. This is about configuration and this is about the instance. Then as I said, every instance will have a default monitoring. What monitoring is that? You see here, The monitoring is CPU utilization, disk reads, disk read operations, then disk write operations, network, all those. It's just getting initialized. So this is what a graph will be, created for all that. So those are the different matrices we can see. An alarm, that we will understand what is alarm, what detailed monitoring and all we will understand in CloudWatch. Okay, so there we understand. Then tagging. So we have tagged it like it's a test box. So the name is that. You wanted to tag additionally, you wanted to tag it in another way, something more, then you can just still go add or edit tags, then do it for your understanding purpose. So this is all about an EC2 instance. How do we create and launch? Hope you guys understand about things and make sense whatever we have discussed. Then what else we need to understand about elastic block storage? We need to understand. So this thing, elastic block storage, we will discuss tomorrow. Is that fine?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so is there any doubt so
Can
far?
you
What we have
explain
done
something
is,
about public and
pardon?
I can't understand about the public and private. Can you talk about that? What is public? What is private?
Private and public IP address. So every time you launch an EC2 instance, which is nothing but a server, two IP addresses are provided to that. One is private IP address and one is public IP address. Why do we need an IP address? It's just because to connect it to your machine. Your machine always needs a name. How do you connect it to your server? The server will have by defaultly an IP address provided, and if you just give a name to that host name, we say host name. So if you give any host name, then we usually connect with that host name. Okay. So to connect to any server, we must require an IP address. But why and why do we have two different IP addresses here? It's because when you launch an EC2 instance, a server, it is used for two different purposes. You work for an organization and you're launching an instance in that organization. Okay. If you wanted to internally use it, then your private IP address is enough to launch or to connect to that within the same network of your organization. But when you wanted to connect it from external, location, then you must need to have a public IP address. For example, you have a web server installed in it, okay, like Apache, and you wanted to connect, or the website is created and you wanted to connect to that web server, website. How do you connect? You must need to, give a link, and with respect to that link, you will be accessing to that. So that link will also have an IP address by defaultly, and that we will just replace by another DNS name. Okay, so that's like with something .coms, example.com, something like that. So that is replaced. That is actually that example.com or something, some .com or .in, anything it is. It is just a DNS name which replace every time. Okay, which replace every time. It is always refers to a particular address, that is IP address. So sorry for the disturbance, dear. So it must require an IP address, and to log in or to connect from external locations without being in your location. When you wanted to connect, you require a public IP address. And within the organization you wanted to log in, you require a private IP address. That's enough for you. That makes sense, I hope.
Yes.
You understood, or you want me to explain in another way?
If you can
Any other
elaborate
thing
that.
to be clarified here? So let me recapitulate once quickly what we have discussed so far today. We have seen yesterday we have seen different type of instances, and we have gone through some slides today. So we have seen, we have covered all that again in terms of what type of EC2 instances we have based on its configuration and its pricing model or revenue model. And we have also seen how to launch an instance. So, and we have launched an instance, and we have also connected to that instance. It's nothing but the server. So the server can be, you can do anything with that server. Okay, now it's okay. The network has gone, so that it is just mentioned like that, but fine. So this is how you create a server and, launch and connect to that. So we have seen how to launch a server, how to connect to that using our key pair and all. Are you clear with that? Is there anything you wanted to clarify? If not, we will end up the session for today, and tomorrow we'll continue with EBS and all.
Okay, that's it.
Okay. Anybody,
So we
anything?
have class tomorrow.
Tomorrow it's Sunday, right? Here in India it's Sunday, so probably we don't have the session for tomorrow.
Okay.
We'll have day after tomorrow. From day after tomorrow, we'll have continuous sessions.
Okay, so we have a session on day after tomorrow.
Yeah, day after tomorrow. That's in India it is Monday, so from Monday to Friday we'll have continuous sessions. Saturday we'll keep it an option.
Okay.
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 Then anything? Don't worry. I've recorded the session. I'll share it with you guys. Anybody else? Anything to be clarified? If nothing, then we will end up this session. Fine. Thank you. Good day.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.